Hi everyone, I'm just going to try and do a quick video on a kind of unified theory, trying to understand the Mudflood, how it links to Meltology, ancient Bible myths, myths from Scandinavia. Looks like giants in that shot from the new Thor film. I want to give a shout out to lots of people on this sort of list. These are the kind of people I've been watching for a bunch of years. Martin Liedtke in particular. I think the man's a bit of a legend. He's really tried to put things together. He's just a great thinker. He is able to synthesize so much information. It's just unreal. His Antiquitex stuff is just brilliant. I mean, he doesn't try and claim everything's his own idea. And if I miss anyone out, just please correct me in the comments. Or just please give shout outs in the comments, because I kind of want to help spread the word and connect truthers together. Wise Up needs a special mention. I've had chats with Wise Up before. I'm trying to just get people out of being in their own silos. So for instance, this Meltology guy, he's great, massive love, but he thinks everything is a red brick, and I'm just not sure everything is a red brick. Although he's done some superb work, and he's really opened my eyes out to the amount of red brick structures that we've got and how much of the world looks melted down. I really hope Martin Liedtke gets on the Meltology thing. Maybe he already has. I haven't checked him out for a little while. But this is the kind of area where I'm coming at from, these kind of researchers. And another shout out to a more recent channel that I found. I mean, there's things like Joanism, which I used to like, but he just got a bit crazy. Paul Cook's great, but I just find his delivery style a little bit hard to take. Just a bit affected, but I think the guy's great. Not a big fan of Sean Atwood. I'm not sure why he's there. Just find him quite a creepy guy. But he's in the kind of area that I'm interested in. I'm interested in conspiracy theories. Just they seem to be more interesting than Hollywood or films. And I don't really trust Hollywood for good reason. I'm just looking for the channel I wanted to mention. Yeah, this is it, Domestic Truther. It doesn't really seem to get many views. Look, less than 1,000. But this is probably the channel that I'd want to be on if they want to get someone on at some point. Just to help connect things together. I particularly like their work on ironclads. I just wasn't aware of this ironclad phenomenon. The orphan train stuff I was aware from people like John Levi, but he just talks so slowly. He just seems he's just wasted all the time. I love John Levi. No disrespect meant, John. I really like your work. It's just your delivery is so slow. Yeah, so the ironclad stuff I just found recently was just amazing. These ironclad ships that just seems to be the Tartarian age. Just seeming to be much bigger and more sophisticated and just much more prevalent. I think Victorian age is another name for the Tartarian age, or somehow it's linked to it, or maybe that was the age that discovered it. Maybe some of the controllers still survived. These symbols here that was discussed in this, I think are really interesting. This heart and hand. I haven't really heard many people talking about Heart and Hand. I know there's a Heart and Hand pub in Brighton. But this Caduceus, the medical industry using that and it looking like a DNA strand. Genesis having gene inside of it, and Isis, genetics. It all seems to link towards the past being far more technically advanced than we thought. I can't get on board with the guys doing the mud fossils to the extent that they do. I can't get my head around the Titans and the giant trees being so big, but possibly that's true as well. But I can get on board with Meltology, and I think if there's any goal of this video, it's maybe for the Mudflood crew to really take on board the Meltology stuff, just to get used to it, get used to some of the concepts, and the fact that it looks like we're living in a world that was far more constructed than we thought on a giant scale. The flood came, melted down the realm. Maybe the grid cities melted down. The electricity or the free energy or however it was working seem to cause massive temperatures. Has anyone got a video of red bricks being exposed to the kind of temperatures that would make them balloon like this? Because this ballooning phenomenon that the meltologists talk about looks to be a thing when you see shots like this. It really does look to be a thing when you see these melted cities in Turkey in particular, and the underground cities. It just seems to be inarguable. And I mean, everywhere there's a plenty of meltology channels where people just walk around their location, wherever they are in the world, and they seem to be able to look at the world with new eyes, which again I love that about this whole truther movement, is it just makes you look at the world with a different paradigm, and it's almost like you were sleepwalking, and then suddenly there's a whole new paradigm to look at the world, and you look at it completely differently. So I find that everywhere I go, I start to look at the world completely differently, and it makes the world come anew to me, which is beautiful. So towns that I found were boring, or cities or streets or you go for walks with your parents when you're young and you'd be bored. But now I've got a new fascination for everywhere I go. I look at the world completely differently. I see it differently. And this meltology paradigm, this way of framing the world, has transformed it radically. The Mudflood transformed it a huge amount. As many Western cities, in fact cities around the world, seem to be buried in silt, mud, whatever you want to call it, volcanic ash perhaps, the volcanoes potentially all exploding and raining down volcanic ash. Whatever the Factor X event was that caused the previous high civilization to be destroyed seems to be on a scale that's unimaginable. So these theories, Meltology and Tartaria and Mudflood, are terrifying in a way, because the forces of nature, or the ability for the controllers to destroy worlds or to reset worlds and bring in a whole range of orphans, it makes me think that, as everyone has been saying, that we're close to another one. They're talking out loud about a reset. So if you just type it into Google, you're going to get a lot of talk about financial reset. And I think the closer we get to exposing the controllers and what the true history of the world, the closer they get to thinking time for another reset. I think we've got to be a little bit careful about how much we expose them, and it's got to be done in such a way that gives them an exit strategy, because otherwise we get reset. They go to the underground bases or the airships or whatever. I'm not sure they can get off-world, or if they can get off-world, I think it's more likely to be beyond ice walls, or to Antarctic rather than to Mars. I'm not really sure that the universe theory is one that is possible to really believe in too much, more than 50% maybe, because of all the lies of NASA. So that's where I'm at with that thinking. But I don't want to claim any. I'm not putting forward my opinion saying I really believe this or this is fact, because I just honestly don't know. I just love these theories because they're just so mind blowing. It's just far more interesting than reading comics or whatever. These bricks that seem to have been exposed to heat and transforming, I see that everywhere I go. All the churches I see around the world, or many of them, they seem to have been exposed to heat. Maybe not to this extent. I've never seen bricks do this, but necessarily. I'm looking out for it. Rock curtains is crazy. Petra. When I used to look at Petra, I was like, what is Petra? Did they carve this out of the rock? But no, it looks like the rock melted around what was there. And there's buildings in Syria, there's buildings in Lebanon, there's buildings in Saudi Arabia where it looks like there's a meltdown, and then the buildings above melted onto the buildings below, and then this idea of pockets of survival I think is great. I'm not sure if I'm going to bring something new to the table, but if I am, it's this idea of Hadrian's Wall and what they call the wind sill. So the wind sill, according to mainstream, is a tabular layer of igneous rock dolerite in County Durham, Northumberland and Cumbria. And parts of it are linked to Hadrian's Wall. So if you look at Hadrian's Wall, it stretches across the north of England, and it used to divide England from Scotland apparently, and there's all kinds of mainstream things about it. If you look at pictures, they tend to show you, I think, the top of the wall. But by linking this together with the wind sill and the theories of meltology, I think you can really start to see that perhaps this was a gigantic wall. This is the bit they tell the public. This top bit here was Hadrian's Wall. But I think if you look at the wind sill, and especially how it perhaps goes into the North Sea. How this goes into the North Sea, it just really looks like it's a gigantic structure that was perhaps melted down. This high force waterfall, again, if you look at it, it really looks, if you use the Meltology theory, that you're looking at melted buildings. If that theory's correct, which it's becoming pretty hard to disagree with Meltology, to be honest with you. I think it's definitely worth a couple of hours of people's time, and I would refer people back to this guy. I find him annoying. I've got to say, dude, I really love Scandinavian people, but you're just too convinced that everything is a red brick, dude. And I just don't think that any giant civilization or advanced civilization would solely build from red brick. It's just ridiculous. I think you just need to make it clear that, you know, they use concretes and they use different sized blocks. Because if you look at megalithic structures in Peru or whatever, I just can't see that they're all red brick. I'm just not seeing. He would claim, for instance, this is all red brick, and somehow the bricks have just all melted together to form this kind of thing. And maybe you're right. I mean, maybe you are. I'm yet to be convinced that everything is red brick, and maybe I'm misrepresenting your opinions. And sorry if I am, and feel free to get me on, or just to refute me, or just ignore me, whatever, I don't care. But I'm just not seeing that everything is red brick. Red bricks do magic tricks, yeah, no doubt. You've definitely convinced me of that. I'm just not seeing how everything is red brick. And I'm also not seeing how every single mountain is a structure that's melted down. Perhaps it is, but I just think you're too certain. You're too young as well, dude. You're just too young to be so certain. You know, just allow a bit of doubt in there. It's just academically not sound to be so certain, and you kind of undermine your message. It's the same as Wise Up, the Scottish guy that claims everything's petrified. You know, yeah, it probably, there's a whole load of stuff that's petrified. And I looked into it, and you can get fast petrification. You can petrify things incredibly quickly. You can do it quickly if you've got a flood and it's acidic, apparently, from looking into it. You can get petrified wood very quickly, so it fits in. If there's a big flood, petrified wood, yeah, fine, you can do it. It happens. But not everything's petrified. Not all buildings are petrified wood. And I just think the truth movement has just got to be a bit more open-minded and a bit less trying to kind of win every battle. Trying to win every single battle that their theory's correct and their theory's true. To be fair, Martin Leaker doesn't seem to do that. I really like the guy, and out of all the truth movement, he's the guy I most want to have a drink with. Martin, if you're out there, I would love to have a drink with you, bro. I think I could bring a lot to the table. What I'd like Martin to do is, I want a timeline. I really want a timeline of how he sees it. When all these mudfloods happened, when was the X factor? When was the controller resets? When did they use, you know, biological or chemical weapons and bring in the orphan trains? When did they do that? Because I think that's different from some of the cataclysmic events, you know. And I'd love for Martin to sit down and do a timeline. Anyway, let's go back to this wind sill quickly. This great sill that seems to stretch across north of England, making Hadrian's Wall more along the lines of the Great Wall of China and possibly other great walls around the world. I've seen some in America. I think John Levi walks his dog along one. And the coastlines of Italy, they again seem to be, and Alaska, they all seem to be constructed. Alaska particularly, I looked at Alaska and I just seeing signs of a constructed coastline. So I think we're looking at a world where the old civilization was far more advanced than we are and could build on a much, much bigger scale. Oh, just while I'm here, the Netherlands, if anyone's not looked into that and how Amsterdam in particular and the other dams there were built and the evidence of previous, I mean, there's just this wall here, that to me seems like evidence of a massive wall that was knocked out. Doggerland, when Doggerland was destroyed. But that means then that 8,000 years ago, when Doggerland was destroyed, that we have got an event that's buried the north of England, Scotland, all the coastlines that could have caused mud flooding. Oh, the layers are here. Let's have a look at layers. I want satellite. This Doggerland area that connected up Britain to mainland Europe, that was apparently, for even the mainstream, they explained Doggerland as being destroyed by a giant tectonic shift that happened. I would really, really like for someone just to connect that together. But in fact, I think people have, to be honest. But yeah, the coastline around Amsterdam and Holland is pretty insane. The giant structures that were created that you can see evidence of to this day, and how they reclaimed the sea. And you can see there, I think, evidence of the old wall that was just knocked out. I'm not sure if this is just not loading or whether that Google are deliberately obscuring, but every time we take a movement forward with the truth community, the controllers seem to take a move forward with censoring us. But yeah, there's just some incredible forts that you find around the place. I mean, I'm taking a random guess that this is an old structure. Well, there you go. I mean, just everywhere you look, you could just go to anywhere. Namibia in Africa, you can go to Alaska. Once you start looking at the world with the new framing, you just see all kinds of different things. So I'm just going to try and pop across to Alaska if I can get across there. Sorry about the length of time it's taking. I'm trying to do this video in the way that people could fall asleep to it. I know that might sound weird, but I really like falling asleep to these videos. So I don't want there to be too much music. Martin Leaker, there's a little comment to you. It's difficult to fall asleep to your videos. I used to fall asleep to them all the time. I'm not sure why it's so difficult to fall asleep to them now, but I find it difficult. And also, truthers, please put your videos in playlists so it's just easy to fall asleep to them. I might just switch off the satellite because I think they're just obscuring the view, or mine won't load. I just want to show you these, what look like constructed coastlines, and they're everywhere. You can go to Miami, Fort Lauderdale, or wherever you want to go. Go down to Key West. They just look like remnants of a big constructed coastline. And why would they have them in Alaska? That's the reason I'm using Alaska. I think this is Alaska. Is because they just seem to be everywhere. And Alaska doesn't seem to be being populated. But we seem to have all this evidence of what looks like a highly constructed coastline. I just don't know how you can explain it any other way. And then if you flick to satellite view, again, I'm just taking a risk. I haven't pre-loaded all my work because I'm too busy. I work full time. I'm not here's my PayPal kind of researcher. But then when you zoom in, you see what looks like evidence of ancient building that's been wiped out by a flood or something. You just see what looks like parallel lines or buildings, or the evidence of city streets that have just been wiped away, perhaps, like here. I mean, again, I'm just going to random places. This isn't pre-prepared. I didn't put pins in the map. I've just gone to a random place, and there you go. So Google overlords, you need to cover that up a bit better. And yeah, I might be wrong. I might be wrong. Don't run out screaming if this doesn't agree with your mainstream science and the way you view the mainstream. I'm kind of like I'm critiquing the mainstream, which is a scientific tradition. You're supposed to critique and try and find new knowledge and not get shut down and ridiculed and, cancelled just because you question a narrative. And then, the melted nature of what you see, it looks melted. I can't remember, is it the Liechtenstein patterns of electrical discharge? There's some really good work on that by guys that show you the kind of Liechtenstein patterns. I'm just going to take a random guess at how you spell this. Is it Liechtenstein? It looks like lightning strikes. I might be getting this completely wrong. Is that the wrong word that I'm doing? I might have got the wrong word. Sorry about that, guys. I've got no idea what this is. But I mean the patterns that you see when you look at mountain ranges, or when you look at what happens when electricity strikes. It does look like there was a meltdown of the grid on a giant scale, possibly by the rising flood waters. Alright guys, I'm pretty much coming up to the end of this video. I kind of intend to want to do longer videos, because I like long videos. I like just falling asleep to them. A 3-hour video, I think's the way to move forward, and just to be able to browse tons and tons of images, because I just think it's mind-blowing. Another thing for truth is, no one wants to see your faces, guys. Just show us the pictures, show us the evidence. You don't need to use your real names, you don't need a PayPal. This shouldn't be your career. You should have a career where you're helping the community, or whatever it is you can do. Obviously there is a place for some people to make a bit of money from this, but it kind of undermines the message if you're trying to make coin. So yeah, I would love some comments. I would love to take this further and discuss things. I've been kind of lurking in the shadows for a long time. Kind of like, I've got multiple accounts that I use that have been deleted. I've been around the block, been around a long time. I just don't like to be visible. I just don't think it's a good idea to be visible, because it's easy to get shut down, it's easy to get cancelled, and it shouldn't be about fame, it shouldn't be about trying to make a name for yourself. So if you don't mind, guys, I'm not interested in that. If I'm on your show, if you invite me on, I'm just there to talk. I'm highly educated. I don't think you'll find many truthers that have got higher educational qualifications. Not that that means anything, because we know the mainstream academic world is effectively corrupted, but it's not easy to get these qualifications, and it does obviously show that I can be dedicated and I can understand things, I can research, I can balance research, and I think it's helped to get me to the point where I just don't try and claim that I know things or that my opinion is correct. So yeah, I'll just leave you with that again, guys. Just remain humble. Don't try and claim everything's petrified wood. Don't try and claim everything's meltology. The truth is probably that all the theories link together. The truth is probably that the Bible is telling us something, that the Hindu Vedas, that the Norse Edda, possibly all telling us a similar story. I think the one thing I'm kind of against is this idea of aliens from other universes. I'm just not seeing that. I think using Occam's razor means far more likely that we're in some kind of Tesla coil or a realm, and that everything is local. If there are aliens, they're going to be local. They're going to be 20,000 miles away or in underground bases. They're not going to be aliens in terms of they come from Mars or something, because I'm not really sure what Mars is. I don't understand why NASA would lie so much. If Mars was really there, then why show us false images of Mars? Why show us false images of moon landings? Why would you do that? It doesn't make any sense. I'm not saying that I'm 100% certain of that, but just these images are just a joke, aren't they? And yeah, I mean, they keep us locked into a certain way of thinking, and we're exposing them all the time. The internet's allowed us to join together. in a community of truthers. So yeah, good luck to everyone and good night.